Look closely at the people who are desperate to appear emotionally unaffected. The ones who never flinch and pride themselves on feeling absolutely nothing. We are taught to view their stone-cold silence as a sign of ultimate power. But here is a dangerous truth, one that society actively hides from you. The person who works the hardest to appear unbothered is almost always the most controlled by their emotions. We have been sold a massive lie about emotional invincibility. We are told that strength means building a fortress around your mind. But nobody tells you that this performance is entirely exhausting, and it is not strength at all. It is just armor, and armor is incredibly heavy to carry through a lifetime. The man who loudly declares that he does not care is often the one who cares the most. Those who pride themselves on having no emotional reactions are frequently the most reactive people in the room. They just react quietly, internally, and destructively. True emotional invincibility has nothing to do with suppression. And understanding that distinction separates those who pretend to be strong from those who actually are. For decades, psychologists have studied the hidden mechanics of human emotion. And they have uncovered a pattern that exposes the fatal flaw of the stone-faced persona. People who suppress their emotions do not actually experience fewer of them. They simply lock the doors and block the exits. Research on emotional suppression reveals something uncomfortable. Individuals who constantly hide what they feel show equal or greater physiological stress than those who openly express it. The emotion is still happening inside the body, only now it has no outlet. When you make a habit of burying your feelings, your brain slowly loses the ability to identify them. You become a stranger to yourself, unable to articulate why you feel hollow or angry. And a person who does not understand their own mind cannot possibly control how they act. This is exactly why so many unbothered people seem perfectly fine, right up until they completely shatter. The eruption was never random. The hidden reservoir was always filling. We are biologically wired to avoid discomfort at all costs. So when a painful emotion surfaces, your immediate instinct is to escape, to distract yourself, to numb the feeling, to rationalize it away. But running away always comes with a heavy price. Every emotion you refuse to sit with becomes a shadow that eventually controls you. The insecurities we run from quietly dictate our behavior from behind the curtain. So if burying your emotions destroys you, and running from them controls you, what is the actual solution? This is where the ancient Stoics understood something that modern psychology is only just proving. The great Stoic philosophers did not preach the death of human emotion. They preached the unbreakable presence of reason alongside it. Consider Marcus Aurelius, a man who ruled an empire, fought brutal wars, and endured chronic illness. What he wrote in his private journal was not the cold logic of a man who felt nothing. It was the profound wisdom of a man who felt absolutely everything, and deliberately chose how to respond. He wrote that you have power over your mind, not outside events, and that realizing this is the only way to find true strength. He said you have power over the layer of interpretation that sits between what happens to you and how you react. Epictetus divided everything into two categories: what is in your control and what is not. Your thoughts, your choices, your reactions belong to you. Everything else does not. And this is where real control begins. When you stop fighting for control over things you cannot change, an enormous amount of energy is suddenly freed. Energy that you can weaponize to master your own mind. Seneca observed that no one is freer than the person who realizes that nothing outside themselves can disturb their peace, unless they grant it permission. Emotional invincibility is not the absence of feeling, it is the absolute refusal to be governed by it. You can feel the crushing weight of fear without obeying its commands. Who you become is decided in the moment before you react, not after. The Stoics called this the space of impression and assent. An impression arrives, someone deeply insults you, or a painful betrayal finds you. Between that external event and your internal reaction, there is a singular moment in time. A brief, powerful pause. And in that pause, you get to choose who you are. Building emotional invincibility is the lifelong practice of widening that pause until it becomes a fortress you can comfortably stand in. Emotional invincibility is not the absence of feeling, it is the absolute refusal to be governed by it. Philosophy is useless if it remains trapped in an old book. We need real methods for forging this exact psychological resilience. The first practice is to precisely name the emotion before you act on it. Instead of just feeling bad, you identify that you feel deeply betrayed. The act of naming creates psychological distance, and distance is the birthplace of self-control. The second practice requires you to deliberately seek out voluntary discomfort. When you sit quietly with a difficult feeling and refuse to look away, you prove something profound to yourself. You build undeniable evidence that you can survive your own mind. The third practice is to audit your judgments instead of your feelings. It is never external events that disturb us, but the stories we tell ourselves about those events. If a friend cancels plans with you, the objective fact is entirely neutral. But if your mind decides they do not respect you, that is where suffering lies. Ask yourself, is this conclusion a fact, or just insecurity speaking? Emotional invincibility is a heavily forged psychological skill, built through relentless repetition. Look at the rare individual who can be deeply betrayed, and yet refuse to become bitter. They have simply learned that feelings are information, not commands. Pain is real, but meaning is chosen. And that exact same freedom is available to you right now. In the very next moment you feel something uncomfortable, and choose to pause before reacting. That single second is everything. It is the boundary line between the victim and the master. The great Stoics did not escape chaos, betrayal, or loss. They walked through it, with clear minds and steady control. That is not invincibility from avoiding pain. That is invincibility from mastering yourself. That level of power was never missing, only never trained properly.